You think you have obesity, but do you though? So first, to make sure we're talking about the same thing, please go catch up the earlier videos in this series while we wait right here. But I do want to speak about the definition of obesity as a disease because it has changed in 2025. When we speak of the disease of obesity, many people will call to mind the BMI or body mass index. And it's true that it was used clinically for a long time as a way to identify people who had obesity. But it was criticized for a long time already, and there are different reasons to doubt its value, or at least not to rely only on that. BMI is a population-based measure. It's useful as a screening mechanism. It's useful to identify people who might have health risks linked to excessive fat deposits. But it's not a good measure of that. It's a proxy measure. Obesity is defined as having excess fat deposits in our bodies. It's not about our BMI. You can have more fat in your body than is healthy for you despite having a normal body mass index. You can have a high body mass index because you've packed on a lot of muscle and you actually don't have all that much fat. In addition to that, the purpose here is to identify people who have a health risk linked to too much fat in their bodies, and you can also have a high BMI, more fat than is normal in your body, and nevertheless be perfectly healthy. So the new definition does integrate BMI, but does not stop there. First, it distinguishes preclinical obesity and clinical obesity. Neither is based on BMI. In preclinical obesity, there has to be excess body fat, but no health problems, no limitation in the activities of daily life, no evidence of any reduced organ function due to obesity. Preclinical obesity is still bad for our health. It is a risk state. People in that category have more risk of developing type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease, for example. But the definition is based on excess body fat and not on a high BMI. In clinical obesity, there is evidence of limitations of organ functions due solely to obesity. There can be a cluster of metabolic abnormalities, limitations such as breathlessness or joint pain. But under this new definition, someone with a BMI above 30, no excess fat, and no limitations of organ function is not obese, not even preclinically obese. How do we diagnose excess body fat? Well, you can measure it directly through imaging. There are scans that can do that, but not everyone either wants or is able to do such a thing. And it will not always be necessary. The definition says you can pragmatically assume excess body fat if you have a BMI of above 40. But under there, you should actually look at other parameters, things like your waist circumference. If it's above 102 centimeters for men or above 88 centimeters for women, that suggests that there is excess body fat, especially as the fat that's around our internal organs is the kind that is particularly bad for our health. And so measuring it at the waist makes sense. The waist to hip ratio is another measurement. And that one does better take into account differences in size, right? Because the waist circumference is an absolute number. If you're very tall, the normal might be bigger for you. The waist to hip ratio takes care of that. The waist to hip ratio suggests that there is excess body fat if it's above 0.9 in men and above 0.85 for women. And then there is the waist to height ratio above 0.5. If you have two of those measurements in the pathological range, regardless of your BMI, whatever your BMI, this suggests excess body fat and either preclinical or clinical obesity, depending on whether you have any organ dysfunction associated with your weight, which you absolutely might not have. It is not true that there are always health consequences of having excess body fat. And it is not true that there is always excess body fat if there is a BMI above 25 or 30. Yeah,